Hey, this is Zach Log the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Nate.
Hola.
And Travis.
Hello.
And we are getting together tonight to talk about Robert Louis Stevenson's poem, The Vagabond, which is actually about San Francisco in 2022. No. But before we get to that quickly, as usual, just a reminder, if you like my work, you like what I do, you'd like to help support me, you can go to subscribestar.com/Zachlog-the-great, and the link is going to be in the show description, and you can sign up to support me at a couple of different levels, and I would greatly appreciate that. Having said that, I believe Nate has volunteered to read the poem for us tonight, so I am going to get that up on the screen. One moment. Okay, let me know when you see it.
I see it.
All right.
The Vagabond by Robert Louis Stevenson. Give to me the life I love. Let the lave go by me. Give the jolly heaven above and the byway nigh me. Bed in the bush with stars to see, bread I dip in the river. There's the life for a man like me. There's the life forever. Let the blow fall soon or late. Let what will be o'er me. Give the face of earth around and the road before me. Wealth I seek not, hope nor love, nor a friend to know me. All I seek, the heaven above and the road below me. Or let autumn fall on me, where a field I linger, silencing the bird on tree, biting the blue finger. White as meal the frosty field, warm the fireside haven. Not to autumn will I yield, not to winter even. Let the blow fall soon or late. Let what will be o'er me. Give the face of earth around and the road before me. Wealth I ask not, hope nor love, nor a friend to know me. All I ask, the heaven above and the road below.
Okay. So, Travis, would you like to get us started with your thoughts on this poem?
Well, I'd like to start with, did anybody figure out what the word lave means? Because my computer dictionary does not give me a definition.
Because I just looked it up.
If I remember correctly, basically it's just flowing water. So, like, you know, the river is going by. You know, I'm out here, you know, in the wild, and the river is passing by me. Time is passing. You know, freedom and so on.
Merriam-Webster defines it as kind of the leftovers. You know, it's kind of give to me the life I love and let everything else just kind of go on.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's, as you mentioned before we went live, I've done some traveling. So, I mean, this poem definitely speaks to something in me. I do like the road and stars at night. It's really a pretty straightforward poem. There's not a whole lot to dissect here, to be completely honest. But more than myself, I mean, I think of people I meet living in Missoula, Montana. It is, for some reason, it is a junction for transients. So I frequently meet transients just because I have an affinity towards travel and transients and hearing their stories. And I'm always impressed by them because, like, they are hardcore, the vagabond. Like, they travel for months and months and years. I mean, literally years living this lifestyle of just whatever comes, whether they're hitchhiking or, yeah, well, a lot of them are hitchhiking, I guess. And while I've got a great affinity for that lifestyle and pursue it from time to time with gusto, I always find myself needing work, like needing routine eventually. So I admire them for being able to maintain bumdom, is what I call it, for an extended period of time. Like, I'm always torn, I live the normal, day to day, and then I'll go escape for a few months and live the vagabond life. Yeah, that's all I got to start us out.
I think the one word you said in there
to vagabondage.
Yes. And I think that's funny, because I think there is a certain kind of in anything, and in this lifestyle, there's a certain kind of freedom and a certain kind of bondage as well, I think.
Well, and it's I think, like Thomas Sowell said, in the real world there are rarely actually solutions. What there are trade-offs. And you can have complete freedom, you could have stability, but you can't really have both. And I think one word you said in there is why I find this a fascinating picture, but I don't think I could ever do this kind of thing, because like as I don't look that old, but I'm older than I look, and like for me, I'm noticing as years go by, having some kind of stable routine is getting more important to me. It's not like everything has to be the same every day. That would be awful. But like having like regularly recurring elements of my day and my life, it just helps keep everything. It helps make everything make sense. Like I don't have to rethink every day from the start. I can assume certain things and then move on from there, and that just makes life easier. And if you want this life of freedom, that is one of the things you have to give up.
Well, I'd have to argue, actually, that there is a certain routine to traveling or just sort of being out in the world, even though there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of surprises, I guess I'll say. And that's part of what I love about being on the road, is you never really know exactly what's going to turn up. But at the same time, there are routines, So, for example, when I was on my motorcycle ride in South America, you had to, pack up the tent. You had to have breakfast. You gotta pack everything back into bags, which is a complete and utter annoyance. It's like, even in freedom and the freedom of few things, like, you still have to fit those few things into a small space. And there's just kind of that. There becomes a certain routine to it. You ride for a while, you get off, maybe you meet someone, maybe you get distracted, but at the end of the day, you have to find a place to either camp or, whatever the case may be. So you're looking for that camp, you find it, you set up camp. So there actually is a routine to it, even though it seems like it's all happenstance.
Huh. Okay. Interesting to hear the perspective of someone who's been a lot closer to this than me. And it's one other thing about this, like the vagabond, and this life of freedom. one thing I find fascinating, I think this, I think every guy is going to sympathize with this at least a little bit. Like, see, like, yeah, I can get that. Um, I get the feeling there's not a lot of women who would find this an appealing idea at all. Um, and you could
So,
say I'm sexist, and I'd say yes, there are men and women, and we're not the same, and there are important differences between us. And if that's a problem for you, deal with it.
Not deal with
so
it,
I will
Sean.
say
Just
that
follow
in
the
my
science.
experience, there tend to be, I mean, I meet fewer women doing this, but there are women living this lifestyle and loving it. I mean, I met a young woman one time, who, because we talked about traveling and that I had traveled, and I was like, yeah, I've never done it the way you have, like basically just poor and begging on the side of the road for food. And like she was telling me stories about, digging through the garbage to find food. And she's like, the greatest thing in the world is finding something. Like whenever she first started, like the idea of eating food out of the garbage, like totally disgusted her. But she's like, there's nothing like that first time when I like went in and it was a completely uneaten meal, in the garbage. Like, and I mean, these are, to most people, this sounds like absolutely insane. But
Once in my life, I am most people. I'm generally not, but right now I'm like, yep, nope, thank you.
but so when she started out, she didn't have this experience, like the experience of doing it, but like she'd been doing this for a while, and she's like, you've got to travel broke. Like she's like, you've got to do it sometime because it really is truly amazing. And even in my experience, not traveling to broke and to those extents, there is a lot of unexpected. There's a lot of special moments because things will come together when everything is falling apart. You'll meet someone, or you just have these little things that happen that kind of take your day from completely broken to special. Because you are kind of living by faith out there. Like there's a freedom and there's an abandon in it, and you kind of have to give yourself over to that abandon and just sort of a faith that things will come together somehow.
What's consider the lilies the field? They neither they neither spin nor sow, but not even Solomon in all his glory was clothed as one of these. We just did that last time.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
came up last time.
I mean, look, you pitched us the choice, this poem or another one, and I was like, to segue back to our country music, I want to do Vagabond again. Like I want to do
Do
Vagabond.
tell,
I
what's the
talk
country
about
music?
half of it. I mean, oh gosh, like I said, there's Amarillo by Morning, there's Desperado. Zach Brown Band has Colder Weather, which is a good one, which is basically this vagabond kind of guy. Like this woman is in love with him, and he clearly feels for her because he keeps in touch, but he nevertheless leaves her. But he always expresses that, one day when I'm done wandering, I'll come home to you. But for now, I'm still out here.
Yeah, well,
Oh gosh,
she might have found someone else by that point.
if she's smart,
Yeah.
wisdom would dictate this.
Uh,
I mean, then you got like, Leonard Skinner's got They Call Me the Breeze, which is a more like much happier song about it. The first three are kind of mournful. Skinner isn't country, it's Southern rock, but still, they're like, yeah. And they get like the snappiest, honky tonk piano piece ever in there. And they're just like, oh yeah. Like, yep, nope, nobody tying me down. Mm-hmm. Well, there's all kinds of like, sort of poignant stuff about it. And it reminds me also of like, these I read a lot of westerns. Who would have thought? But and so you get all, half the stories are essentially some saddle tramp, some guy who, no matter where he came from, he's a saddle bum. He loves to ride around and see new things. He wants to keep rolling on along. And so, the conflict is always, hey, I showed up in this new place and there's something that's compelling me to get involved here. But at the same time, there's my whole life before, which is telling me, nope, 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 nope. This is not your place. These are not your people. Just roll on, turn your head. Don't see the bad guy being bad. Don't see the virtuous people being virtuous but weak. And definitely do not see the pretty girl needing someone to help her. Just keep moving. And so, there's all that stuff. And honestly, it's never held any attraction to me. Like, I have thought this would be, this vagabond lifestyle, this sort of, just moving around would be attractive in only one circumstance. And that was shortly when I was married and I had a dream that my wife had just fallen over dead. And I was like, yep, okay. And at that point, I was just off in the wind. I wasn't doing anything because what was the point? And so I was just floating and drifting around. And I woke up and was like, oh, God, no. No prophetic dreams of that type. I want prophetic dreams to be the ones where I freaking trip in my yard, fall down an uncharted hole, and end up laying on a 1,000-foot deep shaft of pure gold. That's what I want. That's the dream I want to have come true.
Or you fall down a hole and a bunch of bats fly over and terrify you, and then 10 years later you become you become a vigilante and clean up the
parents.
city.
Thank you very much. And they are both still alive. So no, Sean. That's also good. I mean, I'll take a spider bite, I guess. But anyway, this is all, there's a certain defiance in this poem that's interesting too. So he's like, I will not yield, not to winter even. It's like, it seems to be a bit of a hard-headedness to it. Like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't care. The environment can't stop.
And
I can stop me. I want to.
The thing is, there has to be a certain hard-headedness to it, simply to endure some of the hardships of it. Just like anything, whether you're a small businessman or whatever, it requires a certain fortitude of, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm about, this is what I love, and I'm going to do it even though it's hard sometimes.
It's like having a mustache.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, huh?
It's just a lot of people are like, hey, the 70s called. They want their porno back. And I'm like, they can keep it. But I mean, I don't know, man. I've had enough hardships and adventures just in my life being around here. Travel, I'm like, why add to it? I mean, I was describing, 6 different fights I've had with horses to a guy I was working with today, and he was like, yeah, you and horses have been around it. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, you guys, I feel, are living the greatest adventure having kids, because to me, that's it doesn't get any crazier and wilder and more difficult than that. I know it's absolutely wonderful too, but it's just some madness.
Well, and see, that's the other thing
what you have to do.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The vagabond, the traveler, he things change for him because he's not in the same place. But if you're a parent, things change for you because those kids aren't the same. And as much as one day seems pretty much like the next, a couple months go by and things are very different. And that's a different kind of adventure, or should be. So
it's like growing aspen versus a pebble in a river, to go with the mountain theme here. If you're the aspen, you grow and you spread out and new shoots come up and those shoots grow and all of that. And so it grows and develops together and it becomes more of a thing. And then, but with the pebble in the river, I feel is the more vagabond lifestyle, which is that it's not that you're growing, you're changing, but I feel like it's you're gaining things, but it's also just chipping away at you slowly. And when you finally do come to rest somewhere, it will be as a smaller thing than when you started. Rich with experience, certainly. I'm not trying to say that it's not, but I feel like rather than gaining and expanding, you actually kind of eventually going to get tore up by it if you do it as a constant thing.
Yeah, and I can't like I kind of see the appeal of this, the feel of adventure, but I can't say this is something I would ever want to do for more than a few days. But at the same time, like, you know, this guy, this vagabond, this traveler, um, I think probably the big appeal, and I think a lot of people understand this, is like no one really has a hold on. It's the exact same thing is the big appeal of it, and the big downfall, the big let down, is that no one really has a hold on you. No one really has any demands on you. You are free to do as you will, and at the same time, no one needs you. Which is, I mean, to me, that would be a kind of awful feeling. Like that if I weren't here tomorrow, that if like tomorrow I disappeared, I would be missed. That there would be a gap in several people's lives. That's kind of important to me. And but that's exactly what the vagabond here does not have. By definition, he's not there tomorrow. He is somewhere else entirely.
So when I was younger, and I hadn't grown into such a warm and awesome place. I just, this really did have appeal to me, and I was actually about 30 seconds away from doing some vagabonding because I got actually offered a chance. I was interviewing this rock band that had played at a local bar, and I was sitting down talking with them. And they're like, "You're a pretty cool dude. You seem like you'd make a good roadie. You want to come with us?" And I'm sitting there going, "Hmm, hmm." Like, I'm young, unattached. The only thing that's really keeping me here is continuing to go to school. And honestly, I'm getting annoyed with it. So I don't know, maybe. But in the end, I decided that no, let's be responsible. So, and hey, it's worked out pretty well for me. But I do wonder sometimes what things would have been like. Would I have made it back to town in time to actually meet the love of my life, go on that whole adventure, or would I have been somewhere else? Yeah, it's just one of them things. But yeah, it just now, no. Like I said, I have no, like, the guy in this thing. I find him amusing. I find him interesting. I hold no ill will against this character, right? I'm I'm kind of like, yeah, man, you do you, buddy. It's not something for me, but hey, if it's how you want to live, by all means, go about it. But for me, yeah, I do want a friend to know me. The Fireside Haven, that's where you're gonna find my butt when it's cold outside. All right. I hope the blow falls late because I want to see my generations rise. I want to meet my grandkids.
Yeah.
I don't.
The Fireside Haven. I mean, that's an interesting one because you never appreciate that Fireside Haven as much as when you've, been out in the cold and yeah. Well, I mean, I had a day in Chile and it rained the entire day and I was absolutely soaked because I was on a motorcycle. And on the winter front, I sort of did the same thing with winter and said, winter. Why not? So I was riding my motorcycle in winter. Fortunately, I went south. It got cold, and I then turned north and was steadily working towards warmth. But even so, you know, I got to a place, and the woman that the landlord basically for these rooms, invited me down, and I hung out by the fire and hung my clothes up to dry, and hung out with her and another guy that she knew from the town that stopped over, and it's a pretty sweet fireside haven whenever you don't really know where and if that fireside haven is coming.
Well, and it's kind of a cliche. In fact, it's in a kind of stupid pop song. You don't know what you've got till it's gone, and you don't really appreciate things until they might not be there anymore. I didn't.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you like crazy. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, and like I was about to say, I really didn't appreciate how wonderful sleep was until I started having a problem sleeping a couple weeks ago, and then I was like, sleep is the most wonderful thing in the world.
Balance,
so.
Actually, and not in like the moral or the active or the consumptive sense, but in the literal can I stand up straight sense. Only in the last 2 days have I finally been able to get off the prescription I had to correct this freaking vertigo thing that's happened. My ears decided that, hey, we're big and we're gonna make it your problem. And seriously, felt like my center of gravity was about even with my right knee a foot ahead of me. So like if I wasn't taking them, I would be like, ooh. But yeah, a couple days ago, I sort of forgot to take my prescription in the morning and made it through the whole day. And was like, oh, hey, I didn't take it. I feel okay. So I didn't take it today either, and I'm still feeling pretty good. So I'm hoping we're done. I was bellowing some hymn on the way to church on Sunday, and my ears got all funky, and then they popped, and I think that was actually sort of all the pressure getting itself right, because I hadn't done that in weeks.
Sung the hymn or had the pop?
I had the pop. Like my ears hadn't pressure equalized in a long time, and I think that's why I fouled up. Well, Sean just said something, but I have no idea what it was.
I can't hear him either. Can you hear him, Nate?
No, I can't hear him. Sean's in mime mode.
Yeah. Can't hear you, Sean. Did you mute yourself somehow?
Nope,
he
still
doesn't know. Oh, looks like he's trying to work it out.
He laughs.
I wonder if he can hear us.
I think he can.
All right. Yeah, he's shaking.
So anyway, while Zach logs out of the picture.
Yeah, that's right.
No, the closest I've got to this whole wandering thing was when I drove home from Virginia to kind of like house and job hunt when I was getting out of the Air Force. And so like I've got, it's kind of funny. I've got Rachel, my wife, is back there, and she's sort of like giving me my objective for the day. Is like, hey, I got you. This is the address of the hotel I booked you to stay at. I think there you are, Sean. Say something.
Hey, hello.
This is Vlog the Great.
Okay, all right, I'm back.
So anyway, but she sent me this thing. She sent me to this place in Georgia, and it was near-ish my route. But like, I'm driving around, and it is like alternating, and it's like a cloudy full moon night, like werewolf weather, right? And I'm driving through like the dark, scraggly backwoods of rural Georgia. And it's like the trees hadn't fully budded yet, so things are mostly still sort of, creepy, just mostly stark branches. And like it would alternate like curve to curve of this like winding back road the GPS took me on between like wide open and Scooby-Doo foggy. Like, I would be driving and like my headlights would shine out, and I would see, okay, yeah, open. And then, but like right on the other end of the headlight beam, there'd be another bank of just, like I said, cartoon fog. It looked like I was driving past a very quiet rock show on, on the downwind edge, and it would just, poof, I'd dive back into it, and I'm like, I'm preparing my tree fitty, because whatever monster's about to pop out at me, I need to have it ready for. I'd be like, here you go. And it was the craziest night ever, and I was like, yep, here you go. Here's my Vagabond moment.
I'd say the closest I ever, or my close experience to this would be one time I took a cross country bus trip on Greyhound because I was broke and it was cheaper than flying to this thing, and it was 24 hours straight on a Greyhound bus, which is a strange thing. It's kind of odd and hard to explain. I guess I must have slept somewhere on there, but I don't really. This was quite a while ago, and also to add to the Vagabond experience, when I got to the other end, they had lost track of my suitcase, and I had to borrow clothes from a friend for a week. Fortunately, where I was going, there was a friend of mine who was about the same size as me. So we went out and bought some underwear for me, and then I wore his clothes for a week, which I think that probably fits the Vagabond experience as well.
Yeah, I think that's in there. I once had a 30-hour Greyhound ride. It wasn't supposed to be quite that long, but we hit snowstorms. Yeah.
Closest I've got to that is riding trains. Amtrak has a line that goes from New York to New Orleans once a day. I don't see how they're supposed to be able to do that, because from Charlottesville, Virginia to New Orleans is 25 hours. And that's all fine and dandy, but when you've got a baby, a full cycle of the clock with a baby is a bit of a pain. Although when he's laying on his little, improvised little pallet bed with his butt straight up in the air, just zonk. It is the most adorable thing. Oh, Wagon Wheel by Darius Rucker. There's another good vagabonding song. But he's got a destination.
Got a what?
He's got a destination.
Oh, okay.
He's going to see, quote, his baby. And that's the mama that he wants to rock him like a wagon wheel. Rachel, I read her the poem earlier because she recognized the title. And so I read her the thing, and she's like, oh, okay, so like truckers. And I was like, yes, just like truckers.
So back to your comment about, you imagine that there would be less women longing for this lifestyle than men. Men tend to enjoy risk a little bit more, and there's a risk out there. According to the Mars Venus guy, security is the highest need for women, whether that's true or not. The road doesn't really provide a whole lot of security. So that may be part of the reason that they're less inclined that way. Men want to go to war and have adventure and, have the wild idea that going out into the world, well, they'll find their fortune somehow.
Well, yeah, and it's like I said earlier, it's a trade-off. You can have to the degree you have security, you have less freedom. Or actually, well, yeah, and so, if you want to be able to, wander freely, and not be tied down, you give up stability, you give up a very clear picture of what the next day is going to be like, and that you do gain something, but that's also kind of stress, and that's some people find that an attractive trade-off. And I, like I said, I don't think this is something I could do long term, but I understand it. I understand it at least a little bit. And also just like, this element of, like one of you said earlier, this element of defiance in this. It's like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to be put off from this. And, not, freezing weather, not, and not, kind of, this is also against kind of the disapproval of, people looking on. So.
It's just, hey man, gonna do what I want to do.
But and the thing about traveling or traveling broke, the way this girl did that told me I should travel broke sometime. It's the sitting around and waiting, and the idea of sitting along the street, whether you're busking or selling jewelry or just holding a sign begging for money. That's the part that I don't think I could manage. So there actually is, there's a mundaneness to it as well. There's a lot of mundane involved with that kind of lifestyle, and so there's a certain freedom in it, but there's a certain slavery to it too, just like any other routine or chosen career.
And I guess
Well,
that's the real thing, is that it's, people think about this and it's so romantic, such a romantic notion, because you're like, oh man, it's going to be nothing but adventure. Oh, no adventure is nothing but adventure. I mean, even like the adventures are like, thinking of Lord of the Rings. They spent a whole lot less time fighting Nazgul and orcs than they did walking.
Well, and it's
by time, the whole adventure is 90% walking.
That actually reminds me of a meme I did a couple months back, and it's the line. I think this. I'm not sure if it's from the book as well. I would have to check, but definitely from the movie. You have what's it, Boromir? One does not simply walk into Mordor, and then I put Gollum below that. Actually, you do, and then Frodo and Sam is like, yeah, he's right. We totally just walked in, and Sam says, yeah, there was some stairs too, but mostly lots of walking.
But yeah, and that's the thing. And then, you also have the idea that this sort of normal homebound life is going to be stultifyingly boring, but really there's great beauty and there's a whole lot of adventure in it if you allow yourself to find it. A lot of people don't. So, I mean, I guess the interesting thing about all this is, to me, is that we tell ourselves these stories and ideas about what this is all going to be like, whichever side of it we're on, whether we're the vagabond thinking that, oh, all these hearth-bound people are, stuck in their routines and they can't break themselves loose and they're slaves to this and that. And then, all of us homebound people are like, how can you not see the value in what we're doing? You poor, cold, hungry wretch. And really, like I said, there's beauty in both, there's adventure in both, and there's a whole lot of grindy goofiness in both. And that's just, it's living. Living is this amazing blend of the bland and the beautiful.
And to return what you're saying a little bit ago about adventure, I think it was it last year, I don't know, not long ago, a year, maybe 2 years ago, I read Audie Murphy's book, To Hell and Back, which is his account of his time as a soldier in World War II. And it's fascinating because, like, it's, I've never been a soldier. I've never been, in any kind of combat zone or anything. And like, by his account, it's, long periods of boredom and kind of deprivation of various degrees, anywhere from being kind of chilly and damp to being like we're kind of worried that we might be starving soon. And it's long periods of boredom and deprivation, and then punctuated by short bursts of like terror and gore and like what the heck is happening here. And I it's fascinating to see like how all of that, to get just a tiny little glimpse of how all that actually plays out. And I would recommend it. It's an interesting book. But another thing I was going to say, relevant to this poem is it actually also reminds me of like, in the Catholic tradition, Saint Francis, and he said, Jesus said, give up all your possessions and follow me and don't worry about tomorrow, and he's like, well, maybe I should actually do this. And people are like, that sounds kind of weird. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and started a whole movement following this, and was actually fairly effective. And it's like, and the thing is, like, everybody can't do that. Like, if even a significant percentage of society started doing that, a lot of things break down really quickly. But maybe it's good that some people do that.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing, It's like many other things. So it's abnormal. And that's not to say that it's bad. Who knows? Maybe it's necessary for some things. Kind of, it keeps things from getting too stagnant. You get the outsider comes in, shakes things up a bit, and moves on, but the effect of the shaking lingers. It rearranges things a little bit. A small town in Texas can dance now. Wife is laughing a lot about that one. And so I said it has to serve some kind of a purpose, or else the urge wouldn't exist. And it's just, like I said, it's an interesting thing.
Okay, well, I think I've said most of the things I wanted to here. Nate, how about you?
Oh yeah, no, I've made the points I wanted to make, and even got to make a footloose joke that I didn't expect. So this is great.
Travis, any last thoughts on The Vagabond by Robert Louis Stevenson?
I guess to follow up on what Nate said, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of times you see, in stories and literature and life, I guess, that, the vagabond will come into town and he's not trusted or seen as dangerous or whatever. They tell their daughters stay away from him. Because they are perceived as different. And I think sometimes what's dangerous about the vagabond is that they have experienced different places and different people and have a different view of the world because of that. It's like G.K. Chesterton, I guess. He said there's two ways to know home. One is to
Hello? Travis, hello.
there are different ways.
Wait,
Can you-
here, rewind a second. There's two ways to know home.
Oh, so G.K. Chesterton said there's two ways to know home. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. All right. There's two ways to know home. One is to circle the globe and come back, and the other is to never leave. And so while they both allow you to know home, they are still two different perspectives of home. and they both have value, but the man who's traveled around the world and comes back, his different perspective can kind of shake things up sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, and the other thing, like you said, this traveler, comes into town and he's not trusted. And the other thing with that is, it's not necessarily that people think he's bad, it's that he's just unknown. Like, he has no reputation. And
Right.
also, and the I think the really scary thing about that is, if he's going to move on, um he doesn't need a reputation. He doesn't care. And so, like, if this is where I live and this is where I'm gonna stay, that's gonna change how I act because I care about how other people think about me. But if, tomorrow I'm planning on picking up and, going and probably never coming back here again, well, if I, do some things around here that make people not like me, it's not my problem anymore. And so that's, a part of it too, and a part of why, whether it's fair or not, people don't always trust, the vagabond kind of character. Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining me tonight. And if you can hear me, thank you, Robert Louis Stevenson, for this fascinating poem and for a number of interesting stories. And God be with you.
And also with you.